But seriously, how well does this hat match this shirt? How could I not wear them together? Welcome back. If you are new here, welcome for the first time. My name is Carrie. This is my channel Gender Mix, which is where I discuss my life of being a real live, non-binary, genderqueer adult that exists in the world. And I'm just gonna acknowledge those are Harry Potter wands because Harry Potter is fantastic. I'm still an adult. And I'm super broed out right now because it is humid at I might as well be in Florida. Not Ohio. Ohio gets humid, but it's ridiculous. Which is why and then I just washed and moisturized my face so it looks super shiny and sweaty and red. It's I'm just gross and hot and my hair is just a sweaty mess. So you get my bro version. And just to be completely forthcoming with all of you, I can be a bit of a bro. I've been rocking this look on and off since my high school marching band days. And I do maybe have a wall of hats that I wear frequently. That's not even all of my hats. And I've been looking forever for the perfect flowery, Hawaiian flowery hat, and I found one and I cannot wait for it to get here. Especially because most of my hats are black, so I needed something colorful. And I had this hat when I was a kid, and it was, I'm pretty sure, from Wendy's. It was from a fast food chain, and it was their prize toy thing with the kids meal, but it was a hat, and mine was red and flowery. You could collect some different versions. But it was jams themed, and if you are too young to know what jams are, they were these shorts that were the length of board shorts, but they weren't made for swimming. They were just shorts, and they had these crazy late 80s, early 90s era designs on them. If you see Trapper Keepers from that era, those kind of designs. And these were hats inspired by that, and that hat was amazing, and I'm so sad that I don't still have it. But I'm not here to talk about hats today. Surprise. I am here to talk about representation, and representation as a non-binary or genderqueer person specifically, because we almost never get it. And then I've seen it twice in the past week, less than a week, in semi-mainstream media. So I'm gonna preface this. I'm gonna try to not make this super long because I could talk about stuff like this forever, by saying I really was starting to think about representation when they announced the new Doctor Who being female, still a white person, but female, and then half of the world losing their minds over it. And I don't really get that because, well, for lots of reasons, but also my entire life I've been able to relate to characters whether they were male or female. And not every character, because not every character is relatable, but I live in society, so I understand the basic gender roles that people are put into, and I could put myself into another person's shoes to imagine how they might feel in certain situations, regardless of their gender. Someone does not have to look exactly like me and share all of my experiences for me to identify with them in some way, especially in a sci-fi series that I don't really even care that much about and have only watched some episodes of. And even I knew that the Doctor could regenerate as any gender because that alien species doesn't have the same ideas of gender. They can be whatever. Much like my own gender, they're very whatever. So I know why people are losing it, because people are terrible, but I'm really curious, so it got me thinking, is this because I am non-binary? Is it much easier for me to relate to people regardless of their gender because of that? Do cis people or very binary trans people also mostly only identify with people that share their gender? So if you are in that group, cis or binary trans person, I'm really interested in your comments below about yes or no, is it easy for you to identify with any gender, or is it much easier if that person shares your gender? And there's the whole idea of when men talk about experiences, we view it as a human experience, but when women talk about experiences, we view it as only exclusively a woman experience, and they're all human experiences to me. But again, I'm really curious, have I been approaching it wrong because of my own gender, or are people just being terrible? That's not the end of the video though. It's gonna get much longer. Here's the other thing I'm going to acknowledge, because as I was thinking through this, you should also know the way I record videos is I have a half-formed idea about what I want to talk about, and then I start recording, and then I just process and ramble and get off topic because ADHD is a real thing also in my life. But this led me to eventually thinking about this thing, that I have this very problematic favorite viewpoint, and I understand why this is problematic. I agree that it's problematic, but I absolutely adore queer-coded villains. Like, those characters are some of my favorite characters in media, and I get that they're problematic, I agree that they are, but you can still kind of pry them from my cold dead hands, is my like personal opinion, because I love them so much. They're such great characters. And if you don't know what that is, I know I've seen YouTubers talk about it, or you can just Google queer-coded villains. It is most often addressed from like a Disney perspective, because they are famous for having their villains be queer-coded. But the basic idea behind it is that you have a character who is a villain, a bad person, a foil, and you have given them personality traits or certain characteristics that are very stereotypically attributed to LGBTQ plus people. And most often those people are like effeminate gay men. You know, it's problematic because gay people aren't inherently evil villains, basically. But if you don't know about it, like, it's pretty interesting to read about, but I still really love those characters, like Jafar from Aladdin, or Scar from Lion King, or, oh, what's her name? From The Little Mermaid? Ursula. That's the only like female one I can ever think of off the top of my head. But I really like those characters. I really like their personalities. They're just, villains are interesting anyways, so. But before I go on about my love of queer-coded villains, let's talk about some positive non-binary representation. So I kept reading everywhere that the new Degrassi on Netflix has a character that comes out as genderqueer. And I was like, I don't really want to watch Degrassi, but I really want to see this character come out as genderqueer, and it's probably going to be this like angsty teen drama. I was wrong. It's a super angsty teen drama, but I suffered through it just for all of you and for myself. I mean, mostly I just put it on and like would clean my house or whatever and just kind of pay attention to see if a character came out yet. I'll preface this by saying I'm going to try to not be spoilery in case you're trying to watch it yourself or curious, but I really, really wish they would have picked like a super traditionally masculine male character to make this genderqueer like revelation, because it would have just been a very different approach to it. They didn't. I have to say, as much as like as angsty and like too much to handle, it has a ton of LGBTQ plus characters, and it deals with a lot of really important issues. And I actually, as a school counselor, was very interested in how they dealt with their Syrian refugee student storylines, especially because I like worked with some students who, not necessarily from Syria, but I worked with refugee students last year. And so like that was interesting from that perspective, even though it was still angsty teen drama level, but whatever. So if you don't want to watch all that, I know you can just look for clips on YouTube, or I will tell you that it's season 4 that the character comes out, but I don't remember the episodes, I'm sorry. So I'm watching this thing, and this character that is not overly relatable to me, but somewhat a little bit, is the character that comes out as genderqueer. Actually, they don't specifically ever identify their gender. Their school counselor thinks they are trans. They're like, I am not trans. And then they're talking to their friend about it, and their friend's like, hey, one of my favorite vloggers is genderqueer and gender fluid. Maybe that's you. Let's have a makeover, because it's a teen drama. And the makeover scene is really cute, and you know, the person's just like, they finally get to see themselves like how they really picture themselves, and so that's really a great scene. And even then I was like, this is great, and like I can appreciate it as a genderqueer person, but it still wasn't like so super relatable. There are some other things that happened with that character where I was like, these are some relatable moments, and then others where I was like, I appreciate it, but not necessarily me, because we're all different and have different experiences. But then I got the kind of representation that you don't know you need or want or crave until you have it. And that was this episode that dealt with their pronouns, because they use they, them pronouns, which those are my pronouns if you were somehow unaware of that. Those are my pronouns. And the way they handled it was not the character coming out to say it, it was the character's friends talking to another character and just saying, oh, we need to check with them, and explaining to this like love interest character that, oh, this person has changed their pronouns to they, them, and it makes them happy, so who cares, let's just do it. And it was perfect for me, and that it showed that it's really important to use people's correct pronouns, whether they are present or not, and then B, like how to share that information with other people, with permission, obviously. Like, not everyone wants to be out to everybody, I do, like that's me. So it was like this really great illustration of like, hey, they're using these pronouns and they're telling you like, oh, they just switched their pronouns, it makes them happy, no big deal. And one of the characters, they actually had slip up, but it was a very quick, like they slipped, they said, oh, sorry, and corrected themselves and moved on. So like it was just like this great illustration of like, this is how to do it without dragging it out or making it super angsty for the main character. And then there were a couple like follow-up episodes where they showed people using the correct pronouns and discussing the fact that they weren't a girl or a boy, and it was great. Like, I need to find that clip and probably just be like, this is how to address my pronouns with strangers, everyone in my life that I know. So there is that, and so, you know, that show exists, it's on Netflix. So then I watched a show called The Switch, which is a Canadian, like, independent kind of TV series. It was only, I believe, 5 or 6 episodes, and it was hilarious. It's a comedy, and it was really great to have like this really irreverent, sometimes over-the-top comedy that centered trans people. The main character is a Black trans woman, and a lot of the like situational comedic stuff comes from trans issues, but not all of them. And the stuff that could be like very like dramatic and angsty and cause a lot of problems, they approach it from a very, very humorous lens. And it was just really refreshing to be able to watch a show that was like goofy and fun and not taking itself seriously whatsoever, but like almost every character is trans or non-binary. And there's a character on that show who I don't know what the gender is, because like other characters, like, oh, like their gender changes, but everyone used they them pronouns for that person like almost the entire time. Every once in a while someone would use it like a she or her, and it's a trans feminine character, but they would allude, like they would make comments about like, oh, like their gender changes. It was just 100% normalized. Like at no point did anyone ever say like these are their pronouns, they just used them. And so that was like another really great thing to see. It's such a normalized, it was just such a normalized thing that like, and it was really obvious who they were talking about. It wasn't confusing. It was very obvious that they were just using a singular they for the character. So that was called The Switch. I had to pay to access that on Amazon, and it was so worth it. Like, I was happy to support it. But I mean, if you don't have the $10 or whatever to watch the season, there probably are ways to watch it. Or like, I'm really, really hoping it comes to a streaming service though, because more people need to see it. It's a funny show, it's a good show. And to have so many characters that are not cis was amazing. This video is getting long, so I'm not gonna like, I was gonna bring this back to like why I love queer-coded villains, but I'm just gonna say I love them, and maybe that will be another like video topic. That'd be a good collab, but I don't like, not, whatever. This is a long video, I'm hot and sweaty, and I wanna turn my AC back on. So thank you for watching. Leave me your comments. Do you find it easier to relate to certain characters because of their gender, harder? Have you seen really great non-binary representation, like especially in like movies or TV shows? Because I really like movies, especially, and TV shows to some extent, and I would like to see more characters like that and get to a point where we can critique them as characters and like as writing, and not just have to automatically love everything about it just because you're seeing yourself represented on the screen. But luckily, like in all of these situations, even like The Switch, some of the characters are like kind of not great people, but they're funny, and it's nice to be like, hey, you don't have to automatically love everything about this person because you share like this trans identity with them. Like, you can be like, that person is kind of not a good person, but it's done in such a funny way that just, it's a good show. So I am looking forward to them having hopefully a second season very soon. And yeah, thanks again. Oh, and I don't know when I'll actually post this, but probably my Twitter Q&A is still going on, so send me questions on Twitter. You can talk to me about queer-coded villains there if you want, and or on any of my social media below. And again, like, let me know like how you relate to characters. Like, does it matter what their gender is for you to relate to them? What representation can you recommend? All of that good stuff. I'm pretty sure I just repeated everything I already said, so goodbye, have a great week.